If you guys are thinking about moving to San Diego and Encinitas is on the list, you're gonna wanna stay tuned. We're getting into why people love living here, but also some things that people might not like. So we're gonna get into the cons first. So if those don't work, you can just scratch it off, move on, go check out our other videos, Carlsbad, Solana Beach, maybe some other areas that might work for you, but let's get into it right now. Now this first con, when I say it, you're like, I don't know, isn't that good for a city? All cities around here do that. We mentioned in other cities in the past too, in why it's a con, and it's growth. Through Encinitas recently, we've seen a lot of this multifamily development. Now, state of California, they usually require cities to have a specific number of housings and put in their housing plan. Encinitas has really fallen behind on that. So some of these multifamily developments have been getting pushed through, and there is a lot of kickback from the communities. Now, multifamily in itself isn't that bad, but just the amount that they're trying to build and the places that they're trying to build, they're going around, you know, height limits and stuff, and just some of these areas too, when you're living around multifamily. So if you guys are looking at specific neighborhoods, you get some of that overflow. There's gonna be parking structures and parking garages, but you're gonna have some overflow into the neighborhoods. It just happens all the time. Certain areas that have multifamily around it right now, they've started to add a few areas where you need like permits if you're living on that street, if you're a homeowner, but that only mitigates so much. So now multifamily in itself isn't that bad. You will have other issues surrounding that as more and more of these go up.
Encinitas as a whole has not grown a whole ton, except for like the big boom in the 80s, 90s. We're sitting at about 55,000 people. We're only at like 61, 62,000 people now, so not a whole ton of growth since the 90s. A lot of that is a lot of the development stopped happening. So during that time is when Village Park was built, which is a ton of housing. And since then, like in the 2000s, you've only had like Encinitas Ranch and a couple of smaller developments here and there. So a lot of that growth happened already. We're obviously going to see a little bit more now with some of these multifamily spots. You've got some other new construction like Fox Point Farms. You've got another big development off of La Costa Avenue. But there's not a ton, especially if you're looking single family houses, there's not a ton of new construction happening here either. So if you're thinking that kind of growth, that's not what's happening here.
And one thing that they are doing, as they are, you know, a lot of the more multifamily it was like these old lots that have just been sitting there for a long time. So like I said, there's a lot of those projects potentially happening in the future. There's a few going on right now as we speak. But there's also a little bit of the community trying to make some of these open lots like parks. I know off Quail Gardens, they're trying to make one of the bigger lots that is either gonna go potentially multifamily or park, go to a park. So I'm voting for a park, but hopefully, you know, some more of that happens. Just keep some of this open space that we do have here left in Encinitas.
The next con we have is Encinitas as a whole is tough to develop. A lot of the development services, building department, all of that, like to keep things the same. And we've seen Encinitas kind of stay the same for a very long time until the last few years where they've really had to ease up on some of these things because of those developmental needs of the state. But as a whole, it's hard to get things done. If you're in the coastal zone here in Encinitas, it's really hard to get things done. I have clients that bought a lot in kind of the coastal section of Encinitas, thought it was going to take about a year or two to develop. It's been 3, 4 almost, and they're finally getting their home built. So there's definitely some roadblocks, especially in that coastal zone. Even for remodels though, I mean, there's remodels on the coast, like up and down Neptune Avenue or down a little bit further south, where if you're in that really tight coastal zone, it is really hard to get things done. And I'm talking years for major remodels and almost a decade in some cases for new construction kind of in that real coastal zone. And it's not just the coastal area that has issues as well. As you get into a Livin where you're a little bit more in the country, you're a little bit more like on canyons and everything, that just brings its own difficulties and its own rules with the fire department. There's a lot being built out off Lone Jack right now where they had to put in a huge water tank instead of running a fire hydrant like 300 feet or something like that. So there are some hurdles out there. They're a little bit easier to deal with because they're not coastal and it doesn't have to deal with the Coastal Commission, but there are still some other things and concerns out there as well.
Now living in Encinitas, one of the biggest draws is the ocean. I mean, I guess San Diego as a whole, right? Like a lot of people are moving out here, they want access to the beaches, to the weather, to all this, that, outdoors, all that kind of stuff. Beaches here in Encinitas are a little bit harder to access. Now you have the bigger beaches. You have Moonlight Beach. If you go further south to Cardiff, technically part of Encinitas, whatever. We've covered that in other videos. Great beaches down there as well. But a lot of the other beach accesses are big steps going down, limited parking. You're gonna find a lot of areas where there's big bluffs, sometimes during high tides or during certain times of the year. basically there's no beach. It might just all be beach rock down there. So if you're going to like chill out in the sand, hang out, probably not the best places to do it. Like I said, Moonlight, especially during summers, that's where a ton of people are funneling. So those kind of areas that do have easy access, those are where you're gonna find a ton of people. Once again, parking is a pain in the butt, especially during summer times.
If you're carrying a ton of stuff to the beach, lots of kids, lots of coolers, all of that stuff, Moonlight's probably your only bet in Encinitas proper. Either stairs at a bunch of those beach access spots off Neptune, or you've got the switchback at Beacons. But other than that, it's a lot of stairs and really not that easy to get down to. One other thing too, Chris mentioned that the beach kind of disappears on high tides. That means the ocean is almost all the way up to those bluffs. Do not plop yourself down right in front of the bluff. It is dangerous. Definitely, if it's too high tide, don't hang out on the beaches.
And I've been down there sometimes too when it is those super high tides, and I've been to like Grandview and stairs going back and forth to get to the beach down there. And literally, I'm jumping in at the end of the stairs, probably like 3 stairs deep, and I have to get my board and jump into the water because that's how high the ocean is, right? Like there's no beach. It's literally all the way up to the bluffs. Getting out of the water was a little bit of a pain in the butt where you kind of have to time the waves and get out, or kind of swim literally to the stairs to get out. So during those times, certain areas, king tides, etc., when you have really big swings on the high tides, that's when you're going to get those issues down at the beach access points.
And we're talking about beach access for just Encinitas, but you really only have to go 2 minutes to the north and you've got South Ponto State Beach, which is got a parking lot, it's got parking along the road, it is walk onto the sand, usually sand, sometimes rock, but really easy beach to get to. It's one that's kind of a local favorite just because of that access. And like Chris mentioned, Cardiff to the south, super easy to access, lots of parking, and not a ton of stairs.
And one quick tip, if you are going and living in Encinitas, there's a pass you can get through the state of California where you get access to some of these parking lots that do, if you don't have the pass, I think it's 10 or 15 bucks now. Yeah. It was 10, it might be 15-ish now. But with this pass, you get to go to a handful of these parking lots throughout the year. I think it's 200 bucks. So if you've got kids, like some of these beaches that we go to, plenty of times to, you know, pay for itself, especially Ponto. You got bathrooms there, wide open beaches, easy parking, so it's a really good go-to.
Another con is the lack of walkability, and what we mean is lack of sidewalks. So some of the older neighborhoods, the rural neighborhoods, don't have a ton of sidewalks. So old Encinitas, so east of the Coast Highway, up in the hills there, it's great to be able to walk to downtown, to be able to walk to restaurants and bars and shops and all that, but the neighborhoods themselves are not super walkable because there's not a ton of sidewalks, narrow streets, so cars are like having to kind of wait for other cars to go in the opposite direction. So not ideal. Same thing with Leucadia, same thing if you go a little bit more inland in a Livin, not super walkable. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're looking for a neighborhood that has sidewalks, has that walkability. There are a handful of them, so don't hesitate to reach out and ask us.
And one more thing that ties into sidewalks, beach accessibility, and all that kind of stuff. We're standing in a park right here in Leucadia Oaks Park. And as we're looking to the coast, which is that way, you have the train tracks running right down here. Here's Vulcan Avenue, and then you have train tracks. And so if you are living in these neighborhoods and you're like, I'm super close to the ocean, just want to walk to the beach and you want to do it safely, not crossing the train tracks, you can go to the north or the south, but literally it's like not super close. It's easier for a car ride, that kind of thing. And even when you go further south in Encinitas too, you kind of have that same issue going all the way down. So unless you're on the west side of Coast Highway, which is a very limited stock of homes, there's very few of them over there, you're going to be having a little bit harder beach access getting across to go over there. And the next con is going to do with traffic and driving around, and you're like, I've seen this in every video, but it's a little different here because it's not just traffic congestion. Yeah, you have the main roads where you have all the freeway accesses. So going from the south, Manchester to La Costa Avenue, all the way to the north, there's 4 different on-ramps and off-ramps to get to the freeway. So definitely during rush hours, you're gonna have traffic. Definitely coming up Encinitas Boulevard, coming home from the beach, because you have the freeway right there. Plus everybody coming off the coast, you know, going home after the beach, you have a ton of traffic there. Certain other areas, El Camino Real during rush hours, because that's like the main thoroughfare. So there's certain areas where you're definitely gonna get traffic. And with some of these multifamily and all those that we mentioned earlier, these are all close to the freeway, so you're gonna get some more traffic going there. But one of the bigger things is the changing traffic patterns that we've seen in a lot of different spots here in Encinitas. So you're gonna find, like, I live here. I've lived here for, let me see, 2012, so like 13 years-ish, give or take. And it seems like every month, it's not really, but it seems like a lot, you're gonna find like new traffic patterns, whether it be a roundabout, whether it be some new construction and they're changing something else, whether it be a new stop sign, a new stoplight, what else? There's all kinds of stuff going through
New
here.
paint all over the roads.
New paint. I remember once they redid an area of Encinitas Boulevard going towards the freeway. They changed the entire thing, so you have a few lanes going through straight. They went down to one lane where some people are trying to take a right, some have to go through a light to get, it's very complicated. But they literally redid this whole area, and then like 3 weeks later, they're like, this is a horrible idea.
Yeah.
They went backwards and redid it again. And Santa Fe has had a ton of reworking where they're putting in a bunch of back-end parking spaces, which I don't really understand, where you have to like stop traffic,
yeah.
back in, and I'm not a great backer, and I'm sure a lot of people aren't as well. Up and down Coast Highway as well, all the way through till you get to Cardiff. They've redone a ton of that, added like a separate bike lane, but bikes can also use the first lane of the highway.
And then subtracted lanes.
Dude.
Put in backwards parking spots.
Oh my gosh, there's so much going on.
But
This is constant.
Yeah, and you'll see green paint everywhere. That's what I joked about. The new paint thing is green paint means bike lanes or bike safety things. So you'll see that kind of all throughout Encinitas too.
Yeah, and it's literally just constantly changing. There's construction going on all behind us right now on Coast Highway, all through Leucadia. They're doing roundabouts and making it down to one lane and trying to make it more bike friendly, and it's just constant. So the patterns and the traffic are probably gonna be different when you get here, but
ever changing.
Ever changing. So if those cons did not scare you away, or maybe you're like, I do like Encinitas, but I also want to explore some other areas throughout San Diego, be sure to download our free relocation guide. I don't know why I'm pointing there. It could be over there. Wherever it's at, could be down there. The link is actually in the description as well. But download our relocation guide, give you the full details on the areas of San Diego. We have full area guides where you could click into Encinitas and get our local area guides into there. Carlsbad, Solana Beach, all those are in there as well. So be sure to get that downloaded. But what are the good things about Encinitas? Let's jump into it.
So as we transition to pros, there's one that's kind of a pro or a con depending on who you are, but there are not a lot of big businesses, not a lot of big companies here in Encinitas. So if you are looking for a job in the city you live, it's going to be kind of hard here in Encinitas, but the pro is that it's not a lot of added traffic. It's not a whole ton of big commercial spaces, which are not the easiest on the eyes in some spots. But the cool thing is that there are a lot of jobs close by. So Carlsbad has a ton of business parks, a lot of big businesses up there. And then to the south, obviously, there are a lot of different commercial and industrial areas that have a lot of jobs as well.
And I think we don't have the big business districts like Cassie mentioned in Carlsbad and stuff, but we do have one of the more convenient areas since Encinitas isn't too big, like just over 60,000, it's not a huge footprint. So getting anywhere around, back to traffic and this and that, you don't have to go too far. So El Camino Real is like the main thoroughfare, and you have everything you need on there. So you're gonna find your Trader Joe's and Sprouts for shopping, plus a ton of other ones. You're gonna find Targets, you're gonna find Dick's Sporting Goods, you're gonna find Home Depots. You have the Forum, which is actually in Carlsbad, just to the south there. But it's got all your big box stores. So it's kind of everything you need right there, which is pretty nice. And then if you want like local flavor, local vibes, local restaurants, all that stuff, you have actually a few different sections. I'm gonna count Cardiff in there too. So you have Cardiff, Little Town Center. Then you have downtown Encinitas. Then you have Leucadia, which kind of 3 different separate little spots, but a ton of options for great food, dining, date nights, all that. While construction and new development, and that's a little bit more difficult. If you bought a home, it's on a big enough piece of property, ADUs have become a lot easier to build. That's one of the ways that Encinitas has thought of adding more inventory of homes. So an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, or a granny flat, or whatever you want to call it, like an extra unit on your space, on your land. It could be, there's a few different ones that you could do, but they have like pre-approved plans to make the permitting process super easy. So a bunch of different floor plans, not a bunch, but a handful of different ones to just choose from. If you just want something out of the box, you don't want to deal with permitting, and you don't want to go through the design process and all that, they have a few that are ready to go. Now, the timelines could still take a little bit, but they're trying to make it easy. And with the push to add some more ADUs, so you got your property, you have enough space on there to build an ADU, you're gonna get some added value on there for your ADU, some extra rental. There's you know, as far as the rules that it used to be, as far as setbacks, less setbacks. So they make it a lot easier compared to a few years ago to put ADU in your property right here in Encinitas.
The next pro is Encinitas is pretty health conscious, and they've done a lot of things to kind of go a little bit more green, a little bit more healthy. Recently worked on going all electric for new construction rather than gas. Another thing, which then also can be helped by solar, obviously. But another thing, they also went no smoking. So what this means in Encinitas is no smoking in public. So you can smoke on your property, in your home, in a moving vehicle, but no smoking in public. So definitely one of the first to do it here in San Diego. Del Mar also did it. And there's also no drinking on beaches in Encinitas as well. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't even know if there's none in San Diego anymore.
No, I think everywhere is shut down right now. Yeah. I remember we used to live down in Pacific Beach. That was like the last place that you were able to drink. Now, like back in the day, I remember my dad used to play, what was it, Over the Line up in Oceanside?
Yeah.
Used to be able to drink up there. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't think anywhere is right now.
Yeah.
So you want to drink on the beach? Do so at your own risk.
Yeah.
But back to the smoking, one of the reasons too, yeah, the smoke, health, that kind of thing, but also the trash. There's like a huge percentage of the trash that's picked up at the beach, in the gutters, around everywhere, that are cigarette butts. So they cut that out. So no smoking in public places, parks, beaches, parked cars. Kind of anywhere around Encinitas. You won't see many people doing that. Another thing about Encinitas is that they recently approved expansion of their budget for public safety, including some more sheriffs in town, so we don't have our own police department. It's actually the sheriffs that are patrolling here in Encinitas, plus some expanded for prevention and maintenance of fire prevention and stuff. So cutting back certain areas, all that. So it recently got approved, and obviously there's a few more things that got to go on, but just kind of looking forward to that public safety, public health, all that. They are working on that as well. Another great thing about living right here in Encinitas is the community and community events that come along with that. So a lot of things going on throughout all types of year. If you got kids, you're going to find new events, and there's always something going on, whether it be one of the best farmer markets right here in San Diego. They have that, I forget which day, I'm gonna bring it up right now, the graphic, but it's at Paul Ecke Elementary. Great farmers market. They usually have like a live band there, some great food, obviously all the local fixins and veggies and fruits, and you're gonna find a local fish guy there and all kinds of flowers, and it's awesome. So you go down there, there's a new one actually right kind of on the edge of Encinitas and Cardiff. It's Cardiff Farmers Market, but at Miracosta College as well over there. That is on the opposite day of the one I just told you. So it's one's on a Saturday, one's on a Sunday, but awesome farmers markets down there. There was another band playing down there, a little bit smaller on that scale, but nonetheless, just really going into the vibe of, Encinitas used to be a bunch of growing grounds and that kind of stuff. San Diego as a whole has a ton of local farms as well. So tying in all that, fun little activity to have, plus some of the bigger events. So you're gonna have Oktoberfest, where they shut down a big road. They're gonna have the, carnival, like a little carnival rides and that kind of stuff, beer gardens. They're gonna have the parade going through there, some vendors, all that fun stuff. Gonna have a few different street fairs, shut down Coast Highway right back here, and have, once again, vendors, beer gardens, bands, all kinds of fun. So that's twice per year. They have, what's the other one? The holiday parade. So right around December-ish, mid-December-ish, go down the holiday parade. Once again, back to the walkability. One time we parked across the freeway and walked down with the kids through New Encinitas and back to no walkability. There's no sidewalks. You're like dodging cars and stuff, but that was one of the cons. We're not focusing on that right now.
So we've got Encinitas Cruise Nights. This is an awesome one. This is from all of summer. There are cruise nights where a lot of folks bring out their classic cars. There's usually some kind of a theme, like you'll have the VW week or you'll have the Cadillac week. So that's really, really cool event to go out and check out. They close down a lot of the Coast Highway, and you'll see a whole bunch of cars parked. Same thing, live music, food, drinks, all that stuff.
Real quick before he gets on the next one too, closing down Coast Highway. This weekend is Cyclovia, where they close down Coast Highway from like D Street to J Street. And you can bring your bikes out, scooters. There's no cars out there, no parking, nothing. It's just kids, adults, cruise around on bikes, some vendors, a pump track. Another fun event. Go to, grab some local food around there. It's pretty fun as well.
We also have one of the big ones here is the Switchfoot Bro-Am. Switchfoot is a pretty big, good-sized band now that grew up here in Encinitas.
Sing their song. What do they sing?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, continue.
Well, you can play it if we're allowed. I don't even know if we're allowed to. But they have an annual event at Moonlight Beach, which is awesome. They play there. Other artists play there. They have surf contests. It's free, which is insane. There's not a ton of parking, so get ready to walk a ways. But the Bro-Am is an annual event that has become probably one of the biggest here in Encinitas over the years.
And this summer too, they're having, I think, 4 other events down at Moonlight, 4 other music events. The third one, I wrote a note in my phone. I don't remember who it was, but it was a really good one. So,
okay.
Yeah. Some were like bands, like, you know, just local bands and stuff. But this one was actually somebody I was like, oh, I've heard of them. So
yeah.
you can go check that out.
Nice.
Yeah.
They also have the Moonlight Beach volleyball tournament in October, and then Dog Days of Summer in August. So that's just a couple of them. There are also a whole bunch of Encinitas, Taste of Encinitas, Taste of Leucadia are some really cool food events. There's some art events in Leucadia and Encinitas as well. So really, really cool events here in Encinitas. Next up, we've already said this is a con, but it's also a pro, and that is the Encinitas development is tougher. But the reason it is a pro is because it kind of keeps Encinitas aesthetically, community-wise, the same. So a lot of the pushback from kind of the local organizations here on growth and development is to keep Encinitas kind of that same beach, funky beach town that it's been for a lot of years. You'll hear when you come here, specifically where we're at now in Leucadia, keep Leucadia funky, although there have been sidewalks added, which is not funky anymore. But
it's a little less funky than it has been in the past.
Exactly, but that is the goal, is really to keep kind of that beach, that kind of just that coastal town feel to Encinitas.
This next one we mentioned in a ton of past videos. Pretty much everywhere you live in San Diego, the climate. Now in Encinitas, a little bit different. You're a little bit more coastal. As we showed up here, it was cloudy. Coming from inland, it is a little bit warmer. As you're, okay, if you're living like, even if you're living on the eastern portion, let's say you live in Encinitas, and it's a beautiful day. It's 76 degrees. You're like, it's a beach day today. Let's go to the beach, depending on what time of year. Sometimes you'll head to the beach and it'll be 65 degrees. I just did that the other day. We live deep in Encinitas. Coming to the beach, it was definitely, I think it cooled off 12 degrees from within about a 3-mile span. May gray, June gloom, you get that a lot down here. But anyways, still beautiful. I mean, it's a gorgeous day, as a lot of days here are in Encinitas.
Another pro is excellent healthcare facilities. Obviously, this is a huge draw for a lot of people moving here. Scripps Memorial Hospital, right off Santa Fe and Encinitas, right kind of in the heart of Encinitas, is a really highly rated hospital. It's also seen a ton of growth over the last few years and is still growing now. They're doing a lot of work on it as we speak. You also have a bunch of great medical facilities down El Camino Real. So if you're looking to be in the town where you're getting a lot of your healthcare needs taken care of, Encinitas is a great option.
And I love it living here. Back to convenience. It's like if I have a dentist appointment at 8:30, I can leave my house at 8:15, and I've been to a few different dentists around here. So if you guys want the one I'm at now, which is great, hit me up. But there's any of them I've been to, it's within 15 minutes of my house. So it's pretty awesome. Plus, you know, kids dentists and other doctors, and there's just a lot of, you wouldn't think, you know, here in this small town, but there's a lot of medical facilities right here in Encinitas as well.
And if you're thinking about moving to San Diego, maybe it's Encinitas, maybe it's not, definitely get in touch with us, call, text, email. We've got your back when moving here to San Diego.